The Radio Whammo Breakfast.
Suckling on the teat of tech.
With Paul Brislen.
Let's talk high tech. Paul Brislen on Twitter, twitter.com/Paul Brislen. G'day there, Paul.
Good morning, how are you?
I am well. I'm well, except for the gun that was pointed at my head, but that's gone.
Well,
that's
naturally,
right.
yeah. Well, was it a Nerf gun?
There is one of those wandering around the office, actually.
And Be afraid.
They come out when you least expect it.
Yeah.
We're going to live in the future.
We are. I'm so excited.
Where are we?
Been astounded.
Where
should we start?
Yeah, where will we be living in this future?
Well, in the future, I think we should all be living with the Japanese robots on the moon.
Of course.
Because the Japanese government has just committed to spending a paltry couple of $2 billion on building a robot moon base by 2020.
Goodness me.
Which to me is probably, given that the Americans don't seem to know what they're doing with their space plans, and the Russians really don't have the money to spend on it and have realised that, in fact, it's all a bit silly, let's just move on. Let's get somebody who's serious. Thanks. And you don't get much more serious than the Japanese government's long-term planning strategies. So they are going to do it properly, and they're going to send robots up. They're going to build a robotic moon base and have research and experimentation, because this isn't just a means. This isn't just for fun. This isn't just because, hey, wouldn't it be cool? This is a serious scientific enhancement of what we know about the world around us. So good on them, I say. And they won't be alone either, because the Americans have certainly realised that, maybe it is a bit of a space race, and this one's an economic one rather than a Cold War political one. So let's get on and join in too. So they're going to build a robot moon base too.
And I couldn't think of a better country to be building a robot moon base. It's got to be Japan.
No, I know. If it was us, then everybody would laugh. But if it was Japan, everybody's going to take it seriously.
Yeah.
So, I think this is fantastic. Not only because I'm a space buff, but because, it's a fairly small planet we're on, and it will run out of resources eventually, and it would be a shame for us as a species to die out simply because we didn't bother following up what we started 40 years ago. So, I think it's a fantastic step in the right direction, and it's the right way to do it too. Sending people up is costly. Sending robots up is baby steps. Let's do that, and we'll get back there one day yet, and then onwards and upwards.
Yeah. And talking about robots, of course, NASA has had robots on Mars for a wee while now. The rovers.
They have.
But
doing a fantastic job.
Yeah, well, up until this week, bit of a sad news that Phoenix has ended its operation. Finally, it was only expected to last, I think, 3 months.
90 days.
90 days.
Exactly. Yeah. And here it is. How many years later? Still plodding along. Still doing valuable scientific research and discovering things like, well, in fact, there is quite a bit of water on Mars. Let's have a little look and see what life is actually like in this kind of environment. So they've done a fantastic job. I think Phoenix has finally got covered in dust and so can't recharge its own batteries.
Covered in ice. Ice.
Covered in ice.
Yeah.
There you go.
So
you want proof there's water on Mars?
Exactly.
There we are.
Yeah, and it's repeated attempts to contact the lander have failed. Oh.
Well, we have to send a repairman.
Yeah.
I'll volunteer. What is it? Probably about a year each way. When Buzz Aldrin was out here, Buzz Aldrin has a fantastic slingshot methodology for getting to Mars rather cheaply. And it involves timing, because timing is everything. But you use the gravitational pull from Earth, go around the moon a few times, and do this crazy slingshot thing. And you get to Mars quite slowly, but quite cheaply. Which is really quite astounding. It's easy to think these guys were knuckleheads who were just test pilot jockeys, but in fact he was. He's got several doctorates. Yeah, he's a very smart guy.
They indeed are very smart. Let's now move on to something that's not so smart. In fact, it's kind of ironic, Paul.
Oh, the irony. Oh, Paul Warner Brothers. Paul Warner Brothers, who make movies and cartoons, and they're really upset about piracy, and so they've introduced an anti-piracy bit of software, encoding on all their films, so you can tell if somebody sneaks into the theatre and copies the film, you can tell which theatre it was, and you can track down the culprit and punish them to the full extent of the law. And it's a very nice piece of software that they've been using. The only problem is they don't appear to have paid for it. They have in fact been pirating the anti-pirate software. I can feel a cartoon coming on at that point. It's so ridiculously stupid. it makes my teeth ache. It's up there with Sony deciding to put spyware software on all their CDs to make sure you're using the CDs properly. That is, listening to their music. I mean, how obscene is this getting? When you're actually stealing software to find out whether other people are stealing your intellectual property, you've probably crossed a line somewhere, quite a way back, I would say.
Well, Paul, from irony to Back to the Future once again, quite literally, actually, I think this wasn't a Back to the Future 2, the hoverboard.
The hoverboard. I know, I've had so much fun on Gizmodo this morning. The hoverboard, yeah, somebody has not quite a working prototype, and the more I watch the film, the more I think he's conning somehow. I'm yet to get to the bottom of that, but I'm sure it's a con. But it's a great step in the right direction, I think. A hoverboard, a floating Luke Skywalker-esque Back to the Future Marty McFly floating hoverboard that lets you zoom around without touching the ground. This one uses magnets. Watching the film clip, and I'm sure you'll put up the clip eventually.
Yeah, no, it's up there,
you know, he's put this thing on a white box, and of course, if it's just basic anti-magnetic repulsion, then you've got to have magnets in the box underneath. So it's not going to be one you can zip around on the roads unless the roads are full of magnets as well. But it does look so good.
I suppose it could potentially work on those. Aren't there trains around the world that operate on magnets?
Maglev trains, yes. You should have a chat to Juha Saarinen, who has just this very week come back from Shanghai, where he got to ride around at, I want to say, 450 kilometres an hour.
Wow.
On a maglev train, because of course they're frictionless, which makes them go very quickly. Stopping can be a bit of a problem, and if power cuts out, then you're in the toilet. But maglev trains in China, operating today, not science fiction at all, quite real, and very usable.
Extraordinary. Well, you'd just have trains and then a bunch of people on these hoverboards, perhaps riding, hanging off the back. I can see it now.
Catching a free ride. Going, I hope the brakes are working okay.
That's something that Marty would do. Marty McFly.
He is, exactly, yeah. Well, you just steal a ride, don't you? That is science fiction. That's Snow Crash. Neil Stephenson's book, a fantastic look at the future of pizza delivery. And well worthwhile.
Hey, Paul, thanks so much.
Anytime. See you in the future.
Yep. Right now, in fact. Paul Brislen. You can catch him on Twitter, twitter.com/Paul Brislen. Coming up, the Midnights are playing live in the Kiwi Studios, about